Hi there. I'm Emma Jhita and I'm the Chief Executive of the Great Western Society, which is the charity that runs Didcot Railway Centre, which is a heritage venue in South Oxfordshire. So my presentation today is called Socially Responsible Heritage, and it's very much looking at the responsibility we have as museums and heritage organisations to our local communities and also to the wider community in terms of how we can support them, how relevant our heritage is, and how we make that connection. So I'll be talking specifically about a project that we delivered in partnership last summer, but also talking just about what the outcomes were from that, the learnings, and how that's really supported us as an organisation in taking forward changes and developments at Didcot Railway Centre. So I'm just going to share my screen with you so that you can see the presentation. Okay, so socially responsible heritage. So first of all, a bit of an introduction to the Didcot Railway Centre. We talk a lot about invention, innovation and enterprise, and we aim to surprise and delight our visitors through the pioneering history of the Great Western Railway. We're a living museum, we're a heritage experience and an Arts Council England accredited museum, and we bring to life the history of the Great Western Railway from its founding in 1835, engineered by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, through nearly 190 years of invention, innovation and enterprise. So that's really the kind of headline, the elevator pitch in terms of what we do. And you've got a few nice photographs there. On the left is one of our broad gauge engines, which is called Iron Duke, and a couple of our costumed reenactors or interpreters really bringing to life the Victorian age of steam there for visitors. And we do that on, we might use costumed interpreters on regular days, and we'll also use them for special photographic events. So a really nice way there of kind of connecting with our visitors and interpreting that history and heritage that we share. The central picture is from our museum. So some of our traditional visitors who are exploring the routes of the Great Western Railway. And on the right-hand side, you'll see our young volunteers or some representatives from our Young Volunteers programme, many of whom live fairly locally and are really just learning how to engage with that heritage, learning new skills, and just kind of enjoying being part of that story and making sure that the heritage and the history is there to be shared with our audiences. So, as I've mentioned, the charity is the Great Western Society, the charity that runs Didcot Railway Centre. The Great Western Society was formed in 1961 and the society moved to its current location in 1967. Didcot Railway Centre occupies a 21-acre site right at the heart of the town of Didcot. Didcot is a railway junction town in South Oxfordshire, a town that really grew up around the railway, and it's on the line between Paddington and Bristol, so very much a sense of busy line, a town in a very kind of pivotal central location, also connected to Oxford, that has developed because of that transport connection and those transport links. So the rail heritage is very much part of the history of the town of Didcot. We welcome around 50,000 visitors a year to the railway centre, and these range from families and school groups to historians and heritage rail enthusiasts. The organisation exists to engage as broad and diverse an audience as possible in this important heritage, and we surprise and delight visitors through our collection, through the events we put on, and a range of other insights that we can provide into this pioneering history. Access for all is really central to us at Didcot Railway Centre. It's central to our aims and ambitions and really leads our focus on continually improving access to and engagement with our unique collection, the heritage of historic innovations in technology that we can share with our visitors and wider audiences. In order to achieve this improved reach and deliver to our potential as a living museum, the organisation is about to improve our welcome for visitors and our ability to share our collections by improving our entrance and on-site facilities. So it's just something we need to do physically in order to provide a better welcome and a better insight and ability for our visitors and our audiences to engage with the history and the heritage we share. So we've got inspiring heritage to share, but there are some barriers to access. So hopefully that's kind of set the scene a bit in terms of the railway centre and what that heritage and history is. The barriers to engagement, so there are some physical barriers. The entrance to the railway centre, it's through Didcot Parkway station, which is a mainline station, and we've worked incredibly hard to provide clear signage. However, the fact that visitors actually have to walk into the station and come through the ticket barriers in order to travel through and arrive at the railway centre, that can be really daunting for some visitors, especially first-time visitors. We also have a flight of 18 concrete steps that all visitors need to climb in order to enter the site. Because our site is leased from Network Rail, these are actually the same steps that enginemen would have climbed to access the engine yard back in the 1930s. We're working really hard to develop a site entrance so that we can provide ramped access and improved visitor facilities. But realistically, this is still a couple of years away. The other area that's a barrier physically is that our whole 21-acre site is rail locked. So the entrance that I've described is actually the only one onto the site for pedestrians, and there's no road access. The only other access is by rail. The other barriers to engagement are cultural or social barriers. So Didcot Railway Centre has historically been, it still is, a membership organisation, and many of the 4,000 strong membership, they're passionate heritage rail enthusiasts, and they've been involved for much of the 60-year history of the society. Many of them actually for the entirety of that 60-year history. So this can create something of a knowledge gulf between those who are visiting for the first time and those with really deep involvement, knowledge and expertise in terms of heritage rail. Although, of course, our visitors are enthusiastically welcomed, and our volunteers are always delighted to share information and insights into the heritage and the history that we share on site. Another area is that as a heritage venue, we tend to have a self-selecting audience. So our visitors will travel nationally and internationally, but a significant proportion of them are really confident heritage consumers. So they're au fait with the country's heritage sites and museums. Our organisation has had a broad understanding for some years now that it needs to work harder to engage the local community, the audience right on its doorstep. So some images for you of Didcot here. Didcot is perhaps best known for its power station. It was a pretty iconic power station with huge, big 1960s chimneys, which were visible for miles and miles around. It was kind of what you saw and where you headed to if you were traveling to Didcot. But the coal-fired part of it has now been fully demolished. So no longer really representative of Didcot, but still very much in terms of the town's brand, what people think of. As a town, it's only 38 minutes from London Paddington by train, very commutable to Oxford, which is 15, 20 minutes away, and also out to the West Country, places like Swindon, Bath and Bristol. So the town has a rapidly expanding population, thanks to being so well connected by rail and also by road. One of the reasons that I was so inspired to join the Railway Centre as its new chief executive back in May 2019 was because of the incredible potential to engage families and individuals locally. So not just those moving into the area to the new developments and the new housing estates, but actually those families already living locally, many of whom their families have actually been here for a number of generations, but they just don't feel a connection with their local heritage and haven't made that connection with the importance of their heritage to them and to their sense of identity as somebody who lives in and comes from Didcot. So Didcot has grown as a town over the past 2 centuries, really because of the railway. And I firmly believe that the heritage we share at Didcot Railway Centre, it's there for local people. And the social and the cultural histories that we share through our collection, they're relevant, really relevant to the lives of local people today and into the future. So on to the project. In spring 2019, we were approached by Didcot First, which is an organisation that was established in 2006 to improve Didcot as a place to live, to work and grow. And Didcot First focuses on supporting all communities in the area. They asked us if the Railway Centre would be a venue for their pilot initiative called the Grub Hub. So the Grub Hub was an initiative delivered in partnership with another local organisation called SOFEA. SOFEA runs a community larder, and they train young people who are not in employment, education or training, sometimes known as NEETs. They train them in catering and hospitality so that they're learning those skills, transferable skills, and they can hopefully find their direction and go on and develop into kind of fulfilling careers following that training. So working with local primary schools, pupils were identified who were currently on free school meals and who were felt they may not benefit from a regular cooked meal throughout summer holidays. So families who were identified, they were invited to join us at the Railway Centre every Monday throughout the school holidays to get together, to enjoy a freshly cooked meal, and also to explore the Railway Centre and that heritage that we have at the Railway Centre. So hosting this initiative was an incredible eye-opener for us as a heritage venue. Mondays, even in the school holidays, they're traditionally a much quieter day at the Railway Centre because they follow a busy weekend. So the majority of our visitors on Mondays last summer, they were actually visitors specifically to the Grub Hub, it was very nice in a way because the families, they had the site to themselves to go off and explore, discover, have fun, make lots of noise, but actually without our more traditional heritage visitors, you know, maybe getting in their way or giving them a kind of, it was nice. It was a nice space for them during that time. So, but one of the things we quickly realised was just how used to our regular visitor demographic we are. And that's even across the range of events and activities that we already host on site. So currently that can be anything from our regular discovery days, our regular STEAM days, through to Victorian weekends, special events for Father's Day, Mother's Day, Teddy Bear's Picnic, Days Out with Thomas. So a big spread of activities that cater for kind of older enthusiasts or historians, academics, right the way through to just fun family events. But we're very used to our regular visitors, and Mondays during the Grub Hub project, they did feel different. The families were not the families who had visited us before, and the majority of them were there for the first time and hadn't explored the Railway Centre before. So we quickly realised that we were just used to a very specific type of visitor. So just to give you some stats, in terms of our visitors in the financial year 2019 to 20, 67% of those visiting the Railway Centre were from the AB or C1 socio-economic groups. The Didcot town, in comparison, this is 27% of the population locally is from those groups, and that's compared to 67% that we see visiting the Railway Centre. In the same time period, 24% of our visitors were over 65, and this compares to only 12% of the population in Didcot being aged over 65. So you'll see that our visitors were from higher socioeconomic groups generally, and they were older generally as well. So just a very quick snapshot there of a couple of the ways that our visitor base differs from the local population in Didcot. One of the things this helped us to realise was just how different an approach we needed to take to help families feel comfortable visiting, and that different families value very different things to ensure an enjoyable day out. So it's as a site being able to be adaptable and provide those things that will enable families who are first-time visitors or maybe not as heritage or museum savvy as our regular visitors to access and enjoy and connect and have a valuable, fun day out and come away having learnt and enjoyed something. One of the other things, which is just anecdotal, but that was the nature of the project, was that we would have young primary school age pupils visiting, but they would visit with one adult perhaps, whereas with our regular family groups who visit, there are usually many adults. The adults usually outnumber the children on the visit. So one of lovely things that does happen with our regular visitors is that we see an awful lot of intergenerational learning. So the grandparents or the great aunts and uncles will talk about travelling by steam when they were younger, or why train spotting was a fun hobby if you were growing up in the 1950s. So they'll discuss those things as a family, and the young kids will learn from the older kids, from the grandparents, who maybe they are older kids, and equally vice versa. So you've got that lovely kind of intergenerational learning happening. And we found with the families for the Grub Hub project that was much more limited if you had one adult bringing 3 or 4 children. So also kind of things for us to learn, you know, but the specifics of that and what they would take away from that. So I've just put here, this is one of the things we learned from the project, is really to be honest about how effectively we were engaging our local audience. And I think we felt that we were doing a fairly good job, but just they were choosing not to take it up. Now, the Grub Hub project and subsequent work we've done, I think, has really demonstrated that that's not the case. We hadn't put in enough time, we hadn't tried hard enough, and we hadn't developed our understanding adequately to understand our audiences and really know what they needed from us to be their heritage venue at the centre of their town. So this project and the evaluation that was done of the project has given us some really valuable areas for review, and it's been incredibly helpful in supporting our plans for access and engagement into the future as an organisation, and those are plans that we're acting on right now. I think the other thing that's valuable as well with a project such as this is that you'll get outcomes you weren't expecting. So one of the outcomes from our project was that the families who attended the Grub Hub they didn't necessarily know one another, they came from different parts of the town, their children were at different primary schools, but they had in common that they'd not visited the railway centre before. So there was a lovely opportunity for families to meet, to chat, to discuss things. And an example of something useful that came out of that was a discussion around branded school uniforms, and just how much of a challenge that was for families to ensure that, you know, their kids always had a new smart branded school jumper, the required PE, kind of outfit, and that it was expensive and it was very difficult to enable that to happen. So that was something that we hadn't realised, we weren't focused on as an outcome, an intended outcome for the project, but was able to be fed back to the local primary schools and to enable, you know, a uniform share to be set up so that people were able to access, you know, good quality second-hand uniforms, and that schools would be more understanding if families, you know, weren't able to buy the branded uniform. So an aside, but actually a very valuable outcome, although it wasn't an intended outcome. So some of the lessons that we learned from the project and that are really informing us now were that working in partnership is absolutely key. It enabled new audiences to discover our shared heritage. So that was absolutely brilliant for us, really wonderful. Working in partnership also enabled us to see ourselves and our offer through a different lens and have the ability to be more objective. Partnership working led to new opportunities to collaborate. So this is a picture of an organisation called Sustainable Didcot on apple pressing day at the Railway Centre. And this is where visitors bring their own apples, which are pressed into juice using a very traditional process. As you can see, the same organisation, Sustainable Didcot, is also leading the bid for Didcot to become a plastic-free town, and is supporting an upcoming programme of work at the Railway Centre, for which we're also working with an intern from the University of Reading, and we're looking at our carbon footprint. So really calculating our carbon footprint, looking at where we can improve our practices environmentally and ensure that we are having less of an impact on the planet through our regular operations. So that's a brilliant area of work, something we're really passionate about and is equally as important to our local community as the engagement work. So very beneficial there. Something else we learned is that taking external advice is invaluable. We were lucky enough to benefit from support at the end of 2019 from the South East Museums Development Programme and Kids in Museums, and we had a family-friendly review carried out on the site. The work that this initiated has supported adaptations in our museum to ensure young visitors can access the displays more easily, and also a new volunteering initiative which involves costumed interpreters who bring the site to life for visitors in all of its Victorian, Edwardian, 1930s or 1940s splendour. So that's been really fun, visually brilliant, but also very valuable in telling those stories and sharing that history with our visitors in a new and quite interactive way. Objective audience evaluation and development has been a really big learning curve for us and continues to be a big learning curve, but we're now fully appreciative of the importance of solid data-driven analysis of our audiences, whilst being very honest about the barriers we face to engaging new audiences. So, of course, the past few months have made it very clear that we're in a different world to the one we were in previously. As a venue, we've been closed to visitors since mid-March. The majority of our staff have been furloughed. Financially, this is a very challenging time, but also we've been disappointed at just how difficult it is for us and our heritage venue to support the local community in this situation. This is partly due to all access being through the mainline station, but there are other areas such as our online offer, our digital offer, where we're just not as developed as we would like to be, and that's a real focus for us now. We've helped where we've been able to, and we've made use of our heritage signalling equipment, which you'll see here, obviously back when we were open, and this is the Swindon panel, but that's been used by Network Rail staff who needed upskilling or retraining to ensure that the railway infrastructure was working all the time and that our national train network could keep running. So we've been really pleased that we've been able to offer that facility for training whilst we've been closed. But it goes without saying, we need to do more, and we want to make sure that in the future we are doing more and we're able to give more back to the community. And by contrast, SOFEA, who I mentioned with the Grub Hub project, they've continued to operate the community larder and really support those who are vulnerable in the community. And the nearby Hexagon Theatre in Reading was able to transform itself into a huge food distribution hub for those locally who are vulnerable. So, as I said, that's something for us going forward, just to really be there for the community and have the ability to support in any kind of future situation where people are vulnerable and do need that support. And our focus now is very much on our ability to reopen and engage audiences once again. We're in a good place to welcome back local visitors. We're reopening with open air discovery days, where we'll encourage as many local families as possible to visit us and explore and enjoy the 21-acre heritage venue that's right at the heart of their town, right in the centre of Didcot. We're also using our reopening planning to work with local disability charities and to better understand where we can add value for those families that have perhaps had greater challenges when it's come to caring for children or other family members who might be neurodiverse or living with a disability that has made lockdown a particularly challenging time. Close engagement with the community maintains a connection with the benevolent role of companies such as the Great Western Railway in the pre-welfare state era. And we need to continue to embody the values of invention, innovation and enterprise that was so key to the success of the railways back in Victorian times, but also that strong sense of community and responsibility to that community that underpinned those organisations. So this commitment to and responsibility for the local community, it makes a connection with history that museums and heritage venues across the country, we're in a really privileged position to be able to provide this. Okay, so that's really a summary of the project, but more than that, what the learnings and the outcomes have been for us, and their outcomes that we're continuing to process, continuing to work hard on, and of course, the landscape continues to change. So we continue to adapt and be flexible and look at what we can do, where we can add value, and where as a heritage venue at the centre of a community, we can truly be supportive and add value to that community. So if you've got any questions or you just want to get in touch, My email address is there on the slide. It'd be great to hear from you. And yes, thank you very much.